It's just so funny.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Mackenzie. This is Dominique.
Hey.
We are a mother-daughter podcast team, and we have our amazing podcast called And I Know Why. And we love to talk about lots of different topics in healing, as well as just, well, like how we like to say it is real life and real healing.
Yes.
So today we are going to be talking about inner child work and what it really is and how to actually do it.
Which, by the way, Kens, that is like a huge mouthful to say, you know, what it is and how to really do it. Because, I mean, honestly, we're sitting here and we're going to be helping people understand what inner child work is. But at the same time, you guys, I'm not sure that it can be explained just with words. So sometimes it makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, doesn't it, for you sometimes?
Yes, and I feel like it takes a lot of explaining. And, you know, on our TikTok account, people have made comments on the inner child healing things that I've posted where they say, you know, a lot of people talk about inner child healing, but nobody's really saying how to do it or what it really is. Because a lot of people will say things like, oh, inner child work is talking to your child's self, thinking about what they would think about. And that's not really what inner child healing is. That's, I think, a way to begin connecting, but it's not
it's
it's
a cognizant concept, what they're doing, you know, but we're talking, when we talk about inner child work, we're actually talking deeper, not just subconscious, but spiritual and the spirit side of who we are and what we've retained, huh?
Yes, absolutely. And I honestly think it'll probably take a lot of episodes to really talk about what it is and how it affects people, how we've seen it affect our lives, and of course, like how it incorporates into the meditations that we write. And, you know, I think that you're right. It is a really hard thing to just be like, this is exactly what it is and make it super easy. But by the same token, like, I don't want anybody listening to think that we're not going to give real information, because I feel like a lot of times people will say, I'm going to say how it is. I'm going to say what really happens. But then when you listen through the whole thing, they don't actually say it.
I didn't get anything.
Like they just used a lot of words and they didn't say it. So
it's like an infomercial sometimes. You know, you're trying to get to the meat of it. What is it I'm supposed to do? What, you know, and they never get to it. They just get to buy my product. Yeah. And I think what I guess I'm trying to say is we don't want to do that. We really do want people to be able to feel comfortable digging deeper and to become people who feel whole and don't get caught up in the trends and the fads of life and healing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys have questions specifically about anything that we're going to talk about today or mention, just comment them or message us. We really want to help people to really get a full understanding of what things are, not just like concept, but like to really be able to help you guys to put it into your life. And that's, you know, a lot of the reason why we started this podcast, because we really, you know, we have a lot of experience in healing, and, you know, my mother's years of teaching and doing her things, having clients, and mine as well, you know, combined together. We have a lot of things that we would like to be able to make accessible to people, and not just accessible, but digestible. And how does it work in real life? Because like you cannot spend like your entire life meditating or, you know, just connecting. Like you still have to participate in real life.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we want you guys to listen to these podcasts, these episodes, and go, oh wow, like just come away from it going, okay, that is something that I can really do in my life and feel I don't know, like happy about it, or like, wow, I actually have something that I can do. It's not just like an idea.
Right. That that wisdom that comes with healing. There are lots of people that have wisdom, but they, like myself, I did not know how to take my wisdom at one point in my life and create the space for healing too. So you have to have both. You have to have wisdom along with the desire to heal.
Yes. And, we're not just talking about this stuff in terms of like, oh, you should do it, it's so great, but like we're doing this constantly. And all of the topics that we'll talk about are things that we do in real life. I'm a mother of 2 right now, and I have a dog, and I have like just regular life that I'm doing, and I'm still doing these things. Yeah. And she has 2 teenagers at home right now.
Yes, and I'm really happy there's just 2 left.
So there's, we've got lots of things to help you guys with. So let's go ahead and let's dive in to the what first, and then we can start talking about the how. A lot of times, like I was saying, people talk about inner child work, and it's, hey, connect, talk to, visualize, see. And those are the very first step into being able to actually get into inner child healing.
Right.
So, Mom, why don't you start off with just talking about kind of what inner child healing is, or, just all of the things.
Okay. And I took, I try really hard to do a little bit of note taking, even though, I'm more from the hip type of person, but I did take a little bit. And so I do want to use a little bit of my notes here. So when we talk about inner child, it's a part of us that has made decisions from a really young age. It doesn't matter what's going on around that child's life, if it's traumatic or if it's transitional. These are times where we make decisions, right? So,
and like trauma, when she's saying trauma too, it's not just like my house blew up. I mean, this is just like everybody has things that happen that are traumatic for that person. So it's, it doesn't have to be a super huge thing. Sorry, just wanted to.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because trauma can be anything for anyone. Now, do I think everything should be treated as traumatic? No, but trauma can be anything for anybody. Okay, so, and the decisions you make, and then as you grow, as you mature, those decisions you made as a child, they might not fit in your life anymore. They might not be congruent to where you're starting to see you want to go as an adult, for instance. So that trajectory that you thought you had as a child is going to be different than the trajectory you see as an adult. And what happens, though, is we are still living our life on the decisions that our child made. So that is why we have to do inner child work. We have to find those decisions, those places that really aren't congruent to who we are now. And those decisions have set a path for us that are not helping us in the end. So we have to find those places.
I was, while you're talking, I was remembering, so on TikTok, I actually don't think I told you this, but, one of the questions that I asked for sparking people to start connecting with their inner child was, think about what your inner child wanted for your future or for your adult self. And, some people were saying like, oh, well, I didn't ever think about being a grown up or whatever. One person said, oh man, my inner child self would be so disappointed. I'm not a velociraptor, And, I was laughing at it, but, it's, we have, things as we're children that we visualize and see. And, for that person, I can't remember if I wrote back or not, but, maybe, they wanted to be a velociraptor. That's great. Like, as an adult, there are definitely things that, you would be like a velociraptor with, right? If you were like looking and being true to those parts of yourself, you could look at life and go, oh my gosh, like the symbol of what a velociraptor was to me, like I have had now. But like you're saying, like sometimes things that we think we want as a child are not really what we want as an adult. Right. But I think like the underlying things that drive us towards that, like the thing that drove him to want to be a velociraptor was maybe the ability to protect and to be safe and to feel stable. And those would be underneath that. And so we all have something that we're really trying to get to, like a core thing. I want to feel safe. Well, a velociraptor creates his own safety. He's strong. Right. And so that becomes the decision. I wish I were a velociraptor because then life would be good, because I really want to be safe and secure.
Yeah. That's perfect, hon. Yeah. That's really the decision, isn't it? At that point, it's because I don't feel safe. Mm-hmm. I want to be a velociraptor, even though, I mean, that's kind of cute and funny, but there's a reason why a child would say that. Yes. And, you know, it's not just a child plays imagination. There's a reason why they pick certain animals. Mm-hmm. Or certain creatures that they want to look like or be like, or like our little Thomas, you know, my little grandson, Kinsey's nephew. First of all, you guys, he can be a velociraptor. Like literally the hairs on the back of my neck can stand up when he's pretending to be a velociraptor. I suddenly feel like I'm being stalked. It's scary. But it's a brilliant example. Why did he pick a velociraptor? What's a velociraptor represent to him? And then you start finding the decision that this child made. Yeah, I love that.
And that's a fun, silly example. Let's talk about, you know, one of my favorite examples of this is actually about your dad, my grandpa. And this is about, you know, not as fun. You know, it's not as fun. It's not as silly. This is a more of a serious thing of, you know, what can happen when we either we're taught things and we, you know, create decision based on something that we're taught, or we learn it ourselves through our experiences and make decisions about what that experience meant about us or about the world. So why don't you tell us about where you saw this so strongly with your dad?
So, yeah. And
this decision making.
Especially in our environment nowadays, you guys, people are real afraid to talk about the real kind of prejudices, the real kind of racial prejudice. And my father grew up in huge racial prejudice. And he was in southern Texas, down in Big Thicket area. And he had been taught to not like, but not trust either. Black people, Hispanic people, it didn't matter if they weren't a certain kind of white, even they just, my father was taught huge prejudices, okay? So, and the lovely thing, by the way, about my father, because we will on our podcast talk a lot about my dad and the pains he caused in my life and in my siblings' lives. But he also had some intelligent and wisdom things that he passed along, as well as some experiences that helped form him that I can help share. But so my dad was taught these prejudices, and, you know, as many children will do, they will not question for a long time what they're taught. And so he gets into the military. My dad was in the military, retired military, so he was in a long time. So when he first started, though, he was, I think, 17, 18. If I remember correctly, I think he lied to get in. So I think his first little bout was as a 17-year-old. But he got in, and if any of you have been in the military, you understand that it is interracial. It's one of the benefits as a child that I gained from living in the military life was all of the different ethnicities there. So it was exciting for me, but for my dad, who had been taught these prejudices, it was scary, and he didn't know who to trust, because he had been taught that Black people were inferior, and they would steal, and you couldn't trust them, basically, right? In a nutshell. So my dad is in the military now, and now he's being tested because he has to work with people from a different environment.
That belief was being tested, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And he started to recognize, hey, this person I worked with is Black, and he's a hard worker, and I can trust him. And oh, this person over here is white, and I can't trust him. Or this person's lazy. And I thought my dad and mom said that everybody who is this way is trustworthy, and everybody who's this is not. And so his brain starts to think, right? Which all of us do. We start to cognizantly be aware of something different than what we were taught and or programmed to. Emotional programming is what I will call it, you know. So he was taught to think a certain way, and he was starting to see cracks in it. And it wasn't comfortable for him.
Yeah, did he feel really shocked about like starting to notice that it was very different than what he had been told?
I really do think he did. He was a very aware person as far as wisdom goes, but he was, I think, kind of shocked, like, wait, I thought I wasn't supposed to be able to trust this person, or you know. So, and the military does such a great job with getting everyone integrated together, that, I mean, it had to have been on force speed, you know, like really
really quickly. You really quickly learned that was different.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. I mean, he never said that, but I'm pretty sure it was. So, so he goes on and he says, oh, well, maybe this person's trustworthy and this person isn't. And then he starts to say, hey, maybe this old paradigm is wrong. Maybe we can trust everyone, no matter their ethnicity or color, whichever you want to say. But maybe some people aren't trustworthy, not because of their ethnicity, but because their personality, their character, right? How they choose to be. So he starts to get this new thinking, and he has lots of different friends, lots of people. He goes to war. He learns to trust other people. And then fast forward to where mentally, cognitively, he thinks I'm not prejudiced anymore, right? Or I don't have these problems. And
right, because he thought through it. He thought through it all.
And luckily for me, right, he did raise me well that way, to see things in a different way. But so he's telling himself, I don't have this problem anymore. So then late at night, and we do mean late at night, there's a knock on the door. Boom, 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 boom. You're right.
At your house?
Yes,
at your house,
at our house. And my dad gets up, runs down the stairs. He's not thinking, right? He's just thinking, oh my gosh, something's going on. So right away now we know he's in his frontal lobe, because this is where, your fight or flight is. And he goes to the door, sees out the little window, there's 2 Black people there. So what's his initial thought? They've come to rob me.
Right. They're not here with good intentions.
Yeah, they're not trustworthy, but that's not my dad anymore.
Right.
So the question is then, was my dad still prejudiced or not? And he would say no, and I would say no for him. But technically, the old programming is still there. So he built his life on a foundation of prejudice. He tried to build on top of that false foundation new ideas and new concepts. But if you don't get rid of the old concepts, if you don't let them go, then they're still there, and they will pop right up to the top when you have a crisis moment, or when your frontal lobe is now in fight or flight. The old way will pop up.
So he had this knee-jerk reaction. They come to the door, and he's automatically like, they're not good. They're not here for a good reason. Why were they there? What I don't remember what the reason was.
I don't remember either. They were there actually because I think there was something wrong.
Didn't they need help with something? I can't remember the whole thing.
They just needed help. They were there. I don't know. I can't remember what he said, but it was nothing nefarious at all. And yes, he didn't know them, but in the military, you have people come to your house all the time for, to talk to you, or there's some issue they need help with. And remember, this is before cell phones too. So,
different.
So, it is the knock on the door or the phone call that goes to your house. And if you can't get them on the phone, then you go to their house.
Yeah.
So that, and once, all I know is that once then he saw them, and this other reaction was just like maybe a second or two. Because then
he didn't necessarily act
register.
on it. Like he didn't start attacking or run away or something.
He didn't go into, fight mode or anything, but his brain for that little bit turned back to the old way. And for him, that was a real shock. Yeah. Because that's not the way he'd been living his life for a long time.
And it's not the way he was teaching his kids.
Right. So where did it come from?
Yeah.
It came from an old pattern that he'd been taught and had built his foundation on as a little child.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think, I love this story because you can really see the fullness of this, right? And, hopefully this is making sense to you guys as we're trying to paint the picture of what exactly inner child healing is for. How do you, how is it affecting you on your daily life? It's affecting you basically like your subconscious programming that you have, that has been created, the patterning in your brains, all of your brains, and these
each
decisions, each of our brains, and so you create this decision, right? Whether, like we've said, something that you're taught, something that you learn from an experience. So first, he's taught this is how these people are. And then after he's had that, he then goes through life and maybe doesn't even think about that for a really long time.
Yeah.
He maybe isn't even interacting with anybody. He's maybe not even in situations where he would, where like being a racist would come up. But then, once he interacts and as an adult, he starts having experiences that really show, okay, like this is not a true thing. What I was taught here, this is not true. This is not the real world. This is not how people work. And he learned how to understand how people work. That's something that he really did well at. So then he goes, okay, well, that's not real. So he thinks himself out of it. But he had not healed or worked on the emotional and the back programming and the spiritual aspect of what he had been taught. Because when we have a decision, it gets written basically into our body and into our programming.
Into ourselves, yeah.
Yeah, and so they become our knee-jerk reactions when things come up. And, in life, we all have experiences like this where we think, oh, okay, I've worked through this, right? And people will talk about that with healing of like, I thought I was over this. I thought that I was done thinking this way or acting this way. and then they're not.
Done that.
You're not done. Okay, well, why are you not done? Because you haven't really, you haven't taken apart every aspect of it. And, one thing that my mom, Dominique, talks about a lot is the 4 bodies of healing. And really, like, culturally, that's just a huge thing, right? Your spirit, your mind, your body. What did I just forget?
And your emotions.
And your emotions, thank you.
Physical, yeah. You said physical, yeah. And
when you have something that needs to be healed, you have to do each aspect of those 4 bodies. Right. We are complicated. We're really complicated,
yeah, and
creations.
They'll hear us say that a lot of times. We are complicated creatures.
We really are.
You cannot just say we are one way, or that our intent only has one focus.
Yeah.
Even.
And okay, so here's an example, you guys, of something I haven't healed yet. And I'm aware of it. Sometimes also, guys, part of real life is that you go, oh, wow, that's an issue that I need to work on. I don't have time to do that right now. I'm more focused on more pressing issues. This is one of those more to the back burner for me things. So how it looks current time for me as an adult. My husband is very good at music. He loves to play music on the piano, the guitar, the bass. Anything he picks up, he can play. He has his ukulele, right? And my daughter loves it. My almost 4-year-old. She absolutely loves doing the music with him, and he loves to do it. And he loves to whistle. He whistles all the time. This is very hard for me. Current time self, I, as an adult, am like, I'm so glad that he has music and he likes to do this with her, and that it's so special for them, and that I know he's happy and enjoying his day. But I have this deep thing inside me from when I was little that I'm like, what a freaking show off. Like, I am so sick of people like being like, oh, I can play the piano, watch me. I'm so good at it. And that happened for me like when I was little. I've been playing the piano since I was 5, and I love playing the piano. But I'm also dyslexic, and I have short-term memory issues. I have an extremely hard time being able to memorize any music, and especially now as an adult. Like, I remember when my brain all of a sudden was around 12, I just couldn't remember. I couldn't do memory anymore. It was very hard and confusing. Yeah. And I went to a school where the arts were like cool. Oh, wow. Oops. The arts were really cool. And, and my friends wanted to sing, and they wanted to put on performances, and they wanted to do this stuff. And I just also did not like doing anything that anybody else was doing. I didn't want to like High School Musical. I didn't like Phantom of the Opera. So there was like this theme for me with music and people trying to be cool. And I had this decision that I had made. First, my initial thought was, I want to be true to myself. But how that ended up looking, what I decided after that, when I was trying to create how to do that, was, oh, I'm not going to do things the way that other people do it. I'm not going to like what other people like, and I'm not going to interact with things the same way other people do. And then based off of that, I started having these different actions that I took whenever I'd be in a situation where someone was doing music. And the people that were at my school were absolutely showy-offy, okay? That like comes from a real place where they just wanted everyone to watch them and they wanted to do it. So, there are real things and evidences that back up these decisions that we make. And so I decided those things, and music was just very triggering to me, like seeing people playing in social settings. I'm totally fine. I love going to a performance. If I am going to pay to watch somebody play that, I want them to show off. I expect them to do that, right? Or, just whatever thing. If I'm going to go see you, I want to see that. But, and that's such a silly thing. You'd be like, well, why wouldn't you want to appreciate and enjoy like everybody's musical talents? I do. As an adult, I do. But that child decision that I made still affects me. It's still my knee-jerk reaction to go.
Because of your need, most likely, I'm assuming, to be authentic, right?
Exactly.
To do something because it was something you were expressing, not for attention.
Exactly, because I think that music is a beautiful way to express how you're feeling and to say things that can't otherwise be said. Right. But I just felt like it was so tainted by people's ego, which, you know, wonderfully enough, mirrored for me that I was being very much in my ego of judging, right? Of assuming that everybody who was performing was doing it in an egotistical way. So, you know, that's an example of just like current day for me. Like, I haven't fully done that. Now, you can hear I've thought through it. There, you know, I am fully aware of the mental aspect of this, and it's not better yet because I haven't made it better yet. And, you know, so I want you guys to know that it can look, you know, how's it look current, you know, in current life, and something, you know, and I'm sure every one of you can think about something where it's like this for you. And a lot of times I think it can show up in our pet peeves too. That's a really easy place to start recognizing kind of those, you know, those little decisions that we've made where it's kind of silly and fun, because people's pet peeves, right? Sometimes we're like, whoa, why is that your thing? Like, why does that irritate you? Like, I remember my Aunt Laura, we'd go on a road trip, and if there was a water bottle in the car that was empty and somebody accidentally stepped on it, like, it was just like too much.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I actually even brought it up to her like a few months ago. I was like, oh man, I remember that. And she was like, man, I don't know why. Like, that was such an intense thing for me. Because, you know, probably now it's not as triggering for her. She's been doing a lot of healing. But, you know, it's just, it's so interesting to understand how it can look in everybody's different lives, because it can be really serious things, like with your dad and his ethnocentrism and all the different things that were programmed, but it can also be, you know, silly things, but it actually ends up affecting me a lot, right? Yes. Because my husband loves music, and he, you know, I love to listen to music. He likes to play it. I play the piano still, but it's like I have this on again, off again relationship with my piano, because it's so hard for me to really feel like I'm being authentic if I'm playing the piano, even if I want to play the piano. So it's just, it's just amazing. Do you have any?
I thought that was brilliant what you said.
Oh, thank you.
So I don't have anything to add to that. But, you know, it's this, I think also when we're talking about inner child work, it is about finding the places, like sometimes people talk about it as a block, so like what you're talking about. But I know in Chinese medicine, what I love is the word congestion.
Yes.
Because it's not truly a block a lot of times. Like, you have that understanding, and luckily you can work around it. Right.
I'm going with the flow as much as I can.
You're making it work. You're still, so to say a block sometimes, you know, to me means you can't go forward. You can't do anything. Right. But in real, authentic, and spiritual healing, it's not a block. I mean, all the time. It is about congestion. It's about the place where if you want to be the most effective you in your life with your purposes in life, then you have to find those congestion spots that are stopping you or keeping you from being your most effective self.
Yeah, and I think an important aspect of when you're doing that is to remember that it's just information. Like, as you do healing and as you examine yourself, you really need to come as much from a neutral place as you can, or as, you know, viewing it as like, hey, this is information about what I was taught or what I experienced or how I felt. That's not a bad thing to have, and we actually can love having the information, because as you have the information, it can really help you to fully understand what was going on and to have peace about it too, right? Like, I am okay that was my experience as a child with music, but I do want it to be different now. So, but some people will realize, they'll go, oh my gosh, like, I feel this way about music. That's horrible. And they will, put so much emphasis on like, why did I do that? Why did I think that way? And get caught. And it's kind of like they get stuck in the little web of that congestion. Yeah. And they can't see like, okay, I just need to, this is just information for me. I'm seeing this. This is what happened. This is where I'm at. Where do I want to go with this? And
right.
And this, I think, do you have
Go
something?
ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
My butt in. Sorry.
So this is now the talk of like, okay, well, this is what it is. This is what inner child healing is. How do you do it? How do you go from having something that's congested or blocked and really healing it and getting to the point where you are hitting like each of the 4 bodies of healing? I'm going to let you answer.
Oh, boy. Okay. So when we do this type of work, when we are facilitators to help people heal like this, and for our own selves too, the first thing we have to do is decide the age of decision. Mm-hmm. And finding that age of decision, we utilize it through kinesiology, but
layman's term, muscle testing.
Which is also called muscle testing, yes. And that's more the lay term. Most people know to some degree what kinesiology is. And it's very similar to lie detector test concept, a very neutral, like the computer's neutral, right, for lie detectors. But for a facilitator, they must stay neutral too in order to get correct information from your body. And so that's such an important part of what we do is staying neutral, because as soon as we can't be neutral, then the information we get could be tainted. We would start assuming, and we can't assume. We have to stay totally neutral.
Yeah,
as
and
we're
it's
helping
that like
someone.
I don't really care which way it is. Is this a yes or no? I don't really care. Right. What I care about is helping that person where they're at.
Yep. And finding the truth for them. That's such an important part. Another time we'll talk about truth, but we just have to stay neutral so we can help them find the truth of what they're dealing with and where they want to go truly. And so that's such an important part. The other thing that we would need to do is to be able to have, on the whole, maybe this isn't exactly right, but on the whole, we want to have some type of memory of what we're talking about. We don't always have to have a full memory of it, but you want some type of perspective, right? Yeah. Something and about the individual's experience that they can recall something of it. Yeah. Or yes, you're right. Otherwise, sometimes we go by feeling. And it's important because this recall helps the brain to be able to reprogram it that way. Yeah. The brain side. And then, what else was I saying?
So you find the age of decision or the event that something happened. Right. And a lot of times that could be moving, right? Where you're looking for something that's
transitional,
or, like for me with the music, I wasn't necessarily having things outwardly transition, but like inwardly, I was making transitions and decisions about who I was and how I wanted to display myself to the world. So you look for these times where your mind is really open and then it stamps on the decision.
Yes.
So after you've this happened, age whatever, and like you might even be super aware, like this is the decision.
Oh, yeah. Tons of times people know right away, don't they?
Yeah. And other times it'll be hard and you won't really know what it is. But we really feel that somebody who is doing inner child work should have a facilitator, should have somebody who can help guide them. And that's why she's talking about neutrality, because it's important to hold a neutral space for yourself. And like we're talking about, viewing things as information, and having a facilitator or a guide. Like we have guided meditations and we do facilitator work as well. But like having somebody that helps keep it neutral and keeps you in a space of, this is information, this is what we're seeing. So after okay, this is the thing that happened. You might know the decision right away, or you might know what you were really trying to get right away. Like that person who wanted to be the velociraptor. If I were to start a conversation with them and I would say, what does a velociraptor mean to you? Then they would have an answer, and you might be like, I don't really, that's not kind of silly, but you would have an answer. Everybody has an answer as to who SpongeBob means. Like, what is SpongeBob? Everybody knows who's had any sort of interaction with the show, right? And so you get to understand, okay, I had something happen. Now here is my decision. My decision is I want to be a velociraptor. Okay, awesome. Now we're going to figure out what things did you do because of that. And it might be like Thomas, my little nephew right now, pretend to be a dinosaur.
He's my little... and he's like, oh.
Yeah. So what do we know about that interaction, right? He embodies it, and it gives him specific feelings and feeling in control. And, also probably, the funness of being the hunter, feeling the control of being the stalking the prey.
Yeah.
And so you would you look and see what did I do because I thought this? What things ended up happening? What happened in my relationships? What do I see that happened, at my work or at school or at church? What do you see happening because of this decision? So then you go through, okay, well, I wanted to be a velociraptor. So I started embodying a velociraptor. When I would go up to other kids, they were a little uncomfortable because instead of saying hi, I pretended I was a velociraptor at them. And you go through and see, right? Okay, this is the stuff I did. And you're viewing this, it's information for you. So don't beat yourself up about it. And it might even be things like, I don't know, one of the things could seem unrelated. Like, well, one thing that I did is maybe it was hard for me to go to the bathroom. You don't know what it's going to be, and that's okay. Right. You can discover that as you go. So then you've gone, okay, this is what I did. And then after you've done that, you start doing things to see, you start asking the next question.
You.
Yeah.
How did it help you? And you kind of make a grocery list, is what I call it, of the ways that, for instance, being a velociraptor helps you. How does it help Thomas to pretend like he's a velociraptor? I mean, it could be anything. His mom interacts with him. He gets a thrill out of scaring someone. He feels strong. It's all these positive things. Then you have to look at the other side of the coin, which is the negative stuff too. What's the negative side? Well, some of the negative would be that some of the kids get afraid of him and they don't want to play with him because
it's scary.
It's too scary. Yeah. Or another negative is he doesn't know when to stop, right? He just keeps playing Velociraptor all the time. Maybe when it's time to eat, he shouldn't be Velociraptor with two fingers trying to eat instead of using a fork, right?
Right.
Or whatever, or going to bed, he wouldn't be going to bed correctly. He'd still be playing Velociraptor and making a mess of his room and, whatever he's going to do, right?
And you can see, guys, how it snowballs. Like you start seeing, okay, like I started in one place and now I'm ending up with all of this other stuff that's happening, both good and bad. Yeah. And some people really do struggle with seeing what's the good. What's the good thing I'm getting from it? They'd be like, there's nothing good that comes. There's nothing good that comes from
there's always going to be one, isn't there? There's always going to be at least one reason that it's good for what you are doing. Yeah,
because otherwise you're not going to do it if it's not benefiting you. You're doing it because you're getting something from it. And so after you've looked at both sides of that coin, okay, this is how it's helping me, this is how it's hurting me. The next step is a very important question that you have to ask yourself, which is, what did I really want?
Yeah. Why'd you do it to begin with? What was it you were looking for?
Yeah. And now you come back to what's the root of it. The root of it is, I wanted to feel stable, or I wanted to feel in control, or I wanted more attention and interaction from people. I wanted to feel special. And you pinpoint it down to a phrase that expresses the whole of it to you.
Yes.
And after you've expressed, okay, this is the whole of it. What I really wanted was for people to love and accept me and to pay attention to me. Yeah. Or maybe it would be more, what I think would more accurately, I wanted to feel like I was a purposeful part of my family. So what do you do next, Mom? Now you know.
So after you know what you really want, then you just have to make a decision. Did this work? Did it help you? Did it give you what you really wanted? Sometimes that's looking at it as just the child perspective, but for a lot of us, it's also looking at us in current time or through our life experiences, because that person wants to feel safe or they want to feel powerful or whatever. So pretending or getting these reactions from people as a dinosaur would represent the same need for power and control or importance, whatever, right?
Let's talk about how that would look in an adult life. Someone who did the Velociraptor stuff. How would that look in their relationships? If we know that their goal was, what goal do we want to pick? What was their end goal?
Let's say they want to feel in control.
They want to feel in control.
Say that. So then maybe it might show up as an adult, like whenever things don't go their way, they yell like a velociraptor, right?
They have huge expressions and things that startle people.
Yeah. Quit doing that. Stop. I told you, leave me alone, right? All these things like that would create in their life what? Problems, right? Yeah. Because no one's going to want to be yelled at every time you don't feel like you're in control.
Yeah. And it could look like in a work environment, that it's hard to connect with other people, because we're seeing that as the child is having issues in socialization, we would see that represented as the adult in whatever setting they're in. So
they wouldn't know when it's too much.
When is it too much? And the reactions might be confusing. Well, why wouldn't you want, like the kid is saying, why wouldn't you want to pretend to be a dinosaur forever, right? And the adult is going, how come you don't want to go along with all of my ideas? And feeling out of control that way. And maybe I don't have anything to add to these work relationships or to my friendships because people aren't doing it my way.
Right.
So then, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, or even you could even go from an angle of, he wants to be a velociraptor because he doesn't like himself the way he is.
Yeah.
And so then you go through life and you're always trying to be someone else or something else, whatever everyone else is doing. And you're never really expressing what you think and what you feel. And, it could go all kinds of directions, of course, because we're complicated.
We're complicated. Everybody's different, right? So even though, what I want you guys to understand is the decision of like, okay, I want to be a velociraptor is really about, I want to be in control. That is going to show up in your life as an adult. That's just the way it works. Yeah. You're not going to skirt around having that show up in life. And it's going to be things that either people bring up to you and they're like, hey, why are you acting like this? Like, I'm trying to have an adult conversation with you. And you are getting overly reacting to me trying to
claws out.
This kid's got claws. It's like, okay, this is too much. I can't figure out how to work through something with you because you're not being yourself. And it'll look like people say, like, you're not really acting like how I think you would react, or it doesn't really seem like this is how you really think. Do you really think that my opinion doesn't matter and that everything needs to be done your way? And they would go, no, I don't really think that. But then why are you acting that way? These are conversations that hopefully everybody has had something like that, right?
Yeah.
Where whether we've had it with ourselves or we've had a friend or a family member or even a teacher, somebody come up to us and say, what's going on?
Yeah. That's, perfect.
Yeah. So that's how it would look for the grown up. And as, like if we're working, say Velociraptor person is our client, okay? So he's in the session and we've talked about the age and the event that happened, right? Velociraptor time. Oh, it turns out that they were moving and he was starting a new school. And so he would, really went into this. So he's seeing now though, that those things that he did as a kid, he's actually doing real time. He is having those exact same problems, even though it looks slightly different. It feels the same. People are reacting the same. And his relationships are being affected in the exact same way that when he was younger. And he feels the same lack of control and lack of acceptance. So then, now you've figured all that out. You know what you really want. What he really wants is to be in control and be accepted for who he is. Okay, so are you willing to learn a new way?
Yeah. Huge, by the way, that's huge. Because, for instance, my dad was willing to learn a new way. And so he did. But when you actually acknowledge that younger you doesn't want to learn to do it the old way anymore, that's when it pulls out that old foundational belief. Because I really do want something different. And this old way that my child did that didn't know any better at the time, and the child didn't know how this decision would affect them in current time. So there has to be a place of non-judgment, right? Where we can be that neutral person for ourselves too, and compassionate for ourselves, that we say, I really didn't know, and I really do want to learn something better. So my dad knew something better, but his inner child didn't know something better.
Right.
His inner child had still held on to the belief, I must do it this way in order to show my love for my family or to be safe. This is what I have to do.
Yeah, to be safe in the world. This is what you need to understand.
Right. So it's so important to acknowledge after you've looked at all of this that I do want something more. And it's interesting because it goes in through our ears. When we speak out loud, it isn't just, okay, so let me start backwards a little bit. When we think something, that's a very powerful tool for all of us to be able to think something. But the reprogramming or the reframing of our experiences in here that we think about, we have to verbalize it. Because then it comes in here and it goes back in here in a different way than it came just with our thoughts and our feelings. And so it really is, on the whole, so important for us to verbalize what we see, feel, or think.
Yeah.
It helps us to access and process on a spiritual level, not just a mental level. Now we're working on our physiology and our spirituality. Our actual spirit needs to have access in another way. Yeah. I do not know all the reasons why. I just know that this is important to verbalize. And
that's why, we suggest, like, when you're really doing this kind of work, that you have a facilitator, or you're doing a specific kind of guided meditation, and that you speak out loud, because it does make a difference. It makes a real big difference. And, going back to the process of how this goes, and you go, okay, this way does not work. I am not getting what I really want. I'm not really feeling in control of my life. Am I willing to learn a new way? Yes, I am. And then, like you're bringing up, the next question is that child willing to learn a new way? And you have to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And, sometimes the inner, like, that child part of us is a lot more willing than the adult part of us to do something differently.
So this is a very esoteric way of thinking, right? Because a lot of people might be listening to us right now saying, what do you mean my inner child, right. is going to make a decision different than what I'm thinking right now? And there are different aspects that we could talk about forever on the parts of our spirit that leave when we make a decision that is not good for us. But there, for some reason, are layers to who we are that a part of our spirit will leave. It will disconnect from who we are right now at that moment that we make that decision. And by acknowledging that that part is there and wants something different, it brings spirit back. It heals us in phenomenal ways to acknowledge and allow that inner child to be acknowledged. Yeah. To be seen, understood, and accepted. Yeah. The way that you were.
And this stuff that we're talking about is huge, and it feels huge. When you actually do this, it's a lot of work. And a lot of people really shy away from really getting into it. What they want to do is stick at the surface level of like, oh my gosh, this is so sad. My 3-year-old self didn't feel loved. I'm just going to give that child love. And they just visualize hugging, giving that child light, and then they move on. And that is not the purpose of what we do and what we talk about. We want there to be an understanding for the people who are wanting to truly get in and, like, reach in and make those changes. This is the way that you do it. And you can't make it shallow. Yeah. You just really can't.
There's nothing horrible about a person that says, I concentrate and visualize giving love to myself. In fact, that to me is a tender concept. Yeah. But it's not, if we're talking about healing, that's hardly getting your toe in the water.
And I do want to say, like, for some people, when they do that, like, it is really life-changing. Yes. And we love that. We love that that is life-changing for people. But we also want people to be aware and to know, like, take the next step. If you want it to really be different, then you are going to have to make it that way. Yeah. And it's more than just love, and it's more than just awareness. Yes.
And the thing with alternative healing is it's become so diluted with so many little catchphrases and different viewpoints of how to see something. Mm-hmm. And then there definitely are the charlatans out there. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to ever ignore that concept that there are charlatans, that there are people that take advantage of a person's vulnerability.
Yeah.
And desire to have something more in this life. And I can get really emotional about that because I've been there. That I don't want you to think that that healing has to be so difficult and ugly either.
Right.
But on the other hand, it is not going to be healing if you're just staying right on surface.
Exactly.
And I love that there are counselors in the world, good counselors, by the way, not jerks or selfish or twisted
right.
people with agendas, but just, I love a good counselor. But all of that in the end, you have to be willing to take a dive. You have to be willing to go deeper than shallow.
Yeah.
And don't you think, I mean, most times in life, something's not nearly as scary or difficult as we tell ourselves it's going to be.
I mean, when I was first starting into healing and being willing to step into the unknown of who I was, it was very daunting. And I was like, this is going to take so much work. And it was also daunting to know that it was kind of never ending, right? Because when you really are doing healing, you have an understanding like, this is forever. I'm just like forever experiencing new things and forever learning and engaging with myself differently. And you hit different stages in life, and the different stages trigger different things. And it's, but the more that you do it, the less hard it gets, and the more you trust that you're going to not just get through it and come out happier, but that like it's worth it. That like every single time you do it, it's worth it, and it gets good at the end, and whether that's in like a session and it's an hour and a half, or it's something that you're just kind of like working on through life, like it's worth it. It really is.
It's worth it. It's not just worth it. Like once upon a time, I would have said it was worth it for me because I started feeling more joyful and hopeful in life. But now I would also say it's worth it because I feel more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm more control and more aware of myself and what's happening around me. It's kind of like, you take jiu-jitsu or you take karate or kung fu like me, and you are suddenly learning that you are more capable and more powerful than you ever thought you were before.
Yeah.
And what a safe feeling that is. This is not a false safety. It is a reality that you have more power going into a situation than you ever realized.
Yeah. And then you feel, I love that because you feel empowered to be you and to live life. You feel the confidence, like, as a mom, I don't know everything, but I have the confidence and the assurance that I'm always going to be striving to be my best self, as well as knowing that I can trust future me to handle situations that I don't know how to handle yet. Yeah. There's this trust that comes for, as I continue to grow and enter new things, I know that I will learn how to handle it. And I don't have to, like, I still get overwhelmed. I still get overwhelmed going into a new situation, but there is that thing now, the back of my head that says, hey, you've got this. You can work through this. You can know how to do this correctly. And we want everybody in the whole wide world to feel that way. And to know that they can do that,
Yeah.
And to be so happy.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And I'm going to say something else.
Yeah.
It comes from a real authentic place.
Yeah.
I remember, I'm gonna jump back to one of the times we went to Disney World. And okay, first of all, sorry, I'm gonna stretch for a second, you guys. Oh, it's hard. Okay. So in Disney World, you're walking all around and there's tons of people, right? And you guys have to know that my husband, Mackenzie's dad, Neil, is a phenomenal walker and blocker of traffic in in Disney and really in any place where there's a crowd, because I call him a bee. He's like a bumblebee kind of, because you want to go over that direction, right? So you start out here and you and I would go like that.
Right.
Or if there's someone around, we go, we're weaving, but we're still going direct.
Right.
Neil goes like this. Finally gets there. And when he's the leader and we're following, that can be crazy, right? First of all, we're all like, wait, aren't we going there? Yeah, I'm going over there. Can't you tell? And he's all over like that.
But Ty, my husband, had not experienced that with my dad, and he was trying to follow him, and my mom and I were hanging back, and Ty was, where are we going? Going all over. And my mom had told him at the beginning, she said, Ty, like, Neil's gonna just kind of, buzz around and you just like kind of hang back. But my dad calls that the group that hangs back, he calls the pokey puppy group. But when you try to, when you try to follow, you end up just going all over the place. And he doesn't really, he's not aware that he's doing it.
No.
He's just, he's thinking and
because
he's moving.
Also he is blind in one eye.
Yeah.
So I think that adds to it because he doesn't always see everything, right? Peripherally. So I think he does kind of go like this because of his trying to see everything too. Yeah. So he easily is, it's like squirrel, 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 but he's still going in the place
he's still going to end up in the right spot.
Yeah. It's just really hard to follow. So anyway, he'll stop in the middle, not recognizing the traffic flow or what's going on around him. And one particular time he did that, and there were these two guys walking by, and they were bothered by how he stopped. And I heard them say, oh gosh, to each his own. I guess he has no awareness of everyone else around him like that, right? And I guess we just got to be patient. And so what I took from that, and I'm not trying to harshly judge these guys, but they were trying to be, in their way, they were trying to be aware and understanding. Mm-hmm. But even you could hear that in my voice. They were not. They were being judgmental and assuming that this guy's really truly a jerk, but they'll try and be patient with him.
Right.
And instead, and so, this experience that we go through life with, we sometimes tell ourselves, well, I'm going to say the words, and that will mean that I'm trying to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And we force ourselves through this over and over. And some people like to say, fake it till you make it, or they like to say, just do the affirmations and it will open you up. And for sure they can help. These, saying the right thing can open us up to what is better.
We like to think of them as supporting tools.
Right.
They're very supportive.
But in the end, these people have not healed whatever it is that caused them to be so irritated by someone who had no ill intent. Yeah. Who really is unaware. Yeah. Right? Truly unaware. Now, do I wish my husband was more aware? Yes. I wish he could understand that he just stopped traffic and he could have walked just 3 paces over and no one would have been in that space. Right. But when we are quick to take offense, that can be information for us. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, Kens, where was that going? I don't know. But I think it's part of what shows us that we have to bring in a deeper concept than just saying the right words like these guys were saying. Yeah.
I mean, healing, we were just kind of talking about why, deep healing and shallow healing.
Yes, okay.
And it's okay. Like, we're not all always, all the time, going to be in a place where we want to heal deeply.
Right.
And
you
know, you're going to be in some shallow places and some deep places, just always. And that's okay. Like we're definitely not saying, I mean, like we said, real life, real healing. You're still a functioning person. Like you have to be able to do real things while you're doing your healing.
Yeah.
And be okay with that, you know. You know, as much as it's not fun, you know, to have that situation happen where dad stopped and you know, people get confused and people trip over him, like that's okay. That's where he's at, you know. And I'm sure, you know, part of the intention of those people is trying to say that, like, okay, everyone's in their own place. Yes, everyone is in their own place, but you know, also make sure or try to have the compassion, not just for other people, but for yourself as you're doing your healing.
And what happens is we can say the right words, but we really don't feel it.
Yeah.
And what most of us, I believe, want in life is to feel what we believe.
Yes.
We want our heart to say, this is real to me, and what I said was true and authentic and represents exactly what I feel inside.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like I said, I'm not trying to judge those guys harshly because I think they really were trying to express a way that they want to be.
Yeah.
But if we don't heal those things that cause us to judge ourselves and others, if we don't figure out our true motivations for why we got into these ugly thoughts in the first place, these ugly, awful pains that we relive over and over again, that's what inner child work is for. It's to help heal those so you can actually be your authentic, true self, that part of you that always wanted to just enjoy and appreciate and be compassionate or understanding in situations.
And, you know, this goes for anybody with any type of life. You know, this isn't, you know, a lot of people will be like, well, I never had a safe childhood. I never had happy things. Well, my mom didn't, you know, and this is for everyone. And that child self, if you didn't have a good life, still wanted things.
Yep.
Still knew in your heart what it was that you really needed and what it was you were really looking for. And as an adult, as you look back on those things, you have a special lens to understand and to have compassion that was a child. And, you know, like there's a lot of, you know, one phrase that people are really loving a lot right now is that you become the adult that your child's like, that you needed when you were little.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I want people to know that it's not just about stopping there of going like, I became the person that child, like I would have loved to be raised by somebody like me, right? It goes further than that. And it goes into, okay, I not only am I grateful and so proud of myself for creating the home environment that I have for my children and doing it differently. How can I do that for me? You know, what can I do for me and for the past me and for the inner parts of myself to be in this new healed space I've created? Because a lot of people really do come from bad things and they create something good, or they're trying to create something good, and they need those blueprints, which we're going to talk about lots of times. Finding blueprints. But anyway, you guys, I really need to pee. And
and I actually have a client soon, so this is great. I think this was awesome, and I'm really hopeful that this helps answer the question about inner child work, why it can be so beneficial, and why we're such a proponent of it.
Yeah, and you know, like I said before, if you guys have questions, comment them below, and we can get more into these. Because there really is a lot to explore about this, but we wanted to do something that really illustrated, you know, what is it? How do you do it? Why should you do it?
Yeah.
So,
and they're all legitimate questions. They really are.
They are.
we totally get why people don't know what it is or get confused about it because of all the different concepts there are out in the world.
You know, we want you guys to ask us any question about healing. You know, just
Pick
anything. Pick a topic, put it down. We've got a whole bunch of things that we're going to be covering. Ghosts, emotional, dealing with your emotions, anger, childhood trauma, forgiveness, generational issues. I mean, there's a lot of things.
Ancestors.
Yep.
Yeah. So many things.
We want you guys to be on this journey with us, and we're so happy that you guys have been here and that you've listened. Give us a like and a subscription. Follow, like, and subscribe. There we go. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. We totally love that.
Yeah. So we're
so grateful.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next time.